it's packed with functions critical for human behavior and survival. Now, I already talked about our brain, the evolved part of our brain, which is the cerebral cortex, and that allows for our ability to problem solve, to plan, to organize, and to have rational thought. But in order for these functions to occur, we have to have passion, we have to have emotion and desire to make these things happen. And that's what the limbic system does. It adds the emotional spice, both in positive or not so positive ways sometimes. It sets the tone of our mind. It plays a hugely important role in the expression of our emotions with friendship, love, affection, and pleasure. Research has shown that the hippocampus and the amygdala seem to be the main areas involved in emotions, as well as the hypothalamus. The amygdala generates these little chemicals called peptides that represent emotions. The hypothalamus then takes those messages from the amygdala, evaluates the situation, and releases the appropriate hormone that matches the emotions of the situation. So, for example, if you're angry, or if you're scared, or if you feel threatened, the back half of the hypothalamus will send stimulating or fear signals to the body through the sympathetic nervous system that I've talked about, known as the fight or flight response. And it will release the appropriate hormones like adrenaline. So as a result of the release of these hormones, our body will respond appropriately with a faster heart rate and faster breathing rate. We'll have increased blood pressure. Our hands and feet will become cooler in order to divert blood from the extremities to the large muscles, so that we'll be able to either fight or flee. To contrast that, if we feel joy, the front half of our hypothalamus will send calming signals to the body through the parasympathetic nervous system, which will produce hormones such as endorphins. When the limbic system is less active, this is kind of counterintuitive, but when the limbic system is less active or cool, it's actually functioning properly. It's more likely that a neutral or positive interpretation of events will occur, and a more hopeful state of mind is present. When it's heated up or overactive, negativity tends to take over, and because of this, we will have emotional overactivity. The resulting negative state of mind becomes the filter through which we interpret our experiences. And so I can speak for myself during PMS, premenstrual syndrome. That's a classic example of how our emotional limbic system becomes overactive, and that's because of the drop in hormones. The limbic system becomes more active, and that's what activates the negative perception, and then things normalize after that. Another sort of interesting note is that orgasm has been described as mini seizures of the limbic system, and that tends to release or lessen limbic activity, which keeps the limbic system from getting overheated. So just like water in a car engine, orgasm keeps the limbic system from overheating. The limbic system is actually intimately connected with the prefrontal cortex. It works like a switching station between running on emotions and the rational thought and problem solving within our prefrontal cortex. So when the limbic system is turned on, our emotions tend to take over. When it's cooled down, we're able to communicate more with the prefrontal cortex. So some of you may be familiar with the Star Trek TV show, the original series, that was quite popular in the late 60s, that starred Spock and James T. Kirk. And I just thought that, Spock, who was this very logical android, very grounded, very logical, and Captain James T. Kirk was this very emotional, flamboyant, colorful, fiery personality. I just thought that if the two of them could combine themselves, that would be a perfect combination and perfect representation of how the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex are working in balance. So that creation would be known as SPIRK. So next I'd like to talk about the emotions and bonding, or the emotion of bonding. The limbic system is intimately involved with bonding and social connectedness. Since humans, we are social animals, and when we bond in a positive way, we feel better, and this affects the tone and quality of our emotions and our experience of life. So bonding can be considered a kind of mood enhancer because it has such a profound effect on our health and well-being. So where do emotions come from? And there have been many theories around that. So some theories have postulated that emotions start as a physical reaction that filters to the brain, where we respond with an emotion. Other theories have suggested that we first feel an emotion in our head, and then our body reacts with increased heart rate or sweaty hands. So then came along Candace Pert, who is an internationally recognized psychopharmacologist and a research professor. And she published a book in 1997 documenting her landmarking discoveries, and in a book called Molecules of Emotion, where she documented her findings and basically finally answered this debate, which is that emotions happen simultaneously in the head and the body. She discovered that these little emotions called peptides originate not only in the head, influencing the body, but they're also found in the body, blood, muscles, bones, organs, all influencing our brain. Candace Pert's research revealed that our emotions are molecules, and they exist in real, concrete, biological form as molecules of emotion. And that explains why and how our health is affected by our emotions. If these peptides are our emotions, then they continually come in contact with our immune system, our endocrine system, our nervous system, etc. Depending on our emotional state, these different peptides will be released throughout our body. So, for example, if we're feeling bliss from bonding, and so that will be accompanied by the release of endorphins into our body, which promotes the health of our immune system, and that generates a feeling of well-being. So when we speak about emotions, the mind can be understood as a consistent changing flow of molecular information in motion throughout the body. So now that we've established that emotions have a powerful effect on our health, let's explore exactly what paradise is. Is paradise a beautiful place where the climate is perfect? Is it an ocean view, a mountaintop view? What if there's a storm, a tsunami, a hurricane? What would happen to this paradise? Would you still feel the same way if this landscape was destroyed? Is paradise a place, or is it a feeling? Is it more about how we perceive life, how we experience life, and not so much about where we experience it?